Hello, everybody. What is going on? And welcome to the Platinum Draft League Season 5 Power Rankings. We are here once again to give our opinions, which none of you might take kindly, but we're giving them anyways. With me, as usual, I have the returning IL Kid.
Oh shit, I'm first.
You're
hey,
first.
fuckers, how you doing? Much love, many wow. Missed you very much. Poggers, let's get it. No, for real. Hey guys, it's good to be back, and happy to be doing this video and playing with you guys again.
We also have the returning Lille Valia.
Greetings, comrades. I have returned.
Perfect. And we have a new member to the Power Ranking team. We have Dravos.
Hi.
Good stuff. All right, so...
He did have the least to say, to be fair, because he's already been here.
True, he has been here. So, we're here to give our opinions, as you know, per usual. We'll be doing this in a simple manner. We have the team with the coach. We will have all of their Pokemon shown on screen, as well as what we personally gave each person, so you can see what we ranked them. And then the average points, which is what we use to sort of compile this list.
Dude, why did you show off my Season 6 mock team? Come on, man. Like...
Listen, I'm
So
sorry.
frustrating.
Shout out to the
This
Mono
was-
Ditto team.
This was my hard draft plan that I've been working on for like 6 months, and here we are, everyone.
All right. Sorry, I threw this together because we basically all made the same list, so it feels fitting.
Yeah, that's what we call in the biz a joke.
True. All right.
I don't get it.
So-
Please explain.
So
We
who
don't
has
have
the
time for
worst
that. We
team
have
on
time for the next team. Oh, I get to go first. Terrific.
Yeah, you do.
All right. So here at the bottom of the league, we have the Detroit Red Wingulls, aka Wolf Turds, and I don't think it's to many people's surprise. Obviously, when you first look over at the team, you can see that he only covers 3 types, and he does have quite a few double typings. Granted, some of those are Silvally, which will change its type with its drives, and our Ditto, who just uses Transform. But we still count those. They still have a lot of other double typings. Also, most of these Pokemon are not the best. Like, Wormadam Trash was a Pokemon I never thought I'd see drafted. Ditto is a Pokemon who has been drafted but has not been useful. Other Pokemon, though, can be a bit threatening. We talked a bit about Keldeo. Keldeo is a big threat. It's got a nice speed tier. Gets a lot of offense. You have Hoop Unbound, which has those crazy offenses, which got sniped from me. So hopefully you'll be able to use that effectively. Mega Kangaskhan, which we have downplayed quite a bit, but you were able to get some good points of that, which you can use to grab other high-tier Pokemon. But yeah, overall, the lack of typings and the dual typings on your team, plus there's just overall a lack of synergy. You don't have a lot of Pokemon who want to fill in specific roles. Like, you don't have many tanks. Your main tanks are Gastrodon and, dear God, I'm about to say this, Wormadam Trash form. So, good luck on that. Would anyone like to add anything?
Well spoken, as always, my friend. Just
Thank you.
verbal candy. But, no, I'll say a couple different things. Like, for one, Hoop is goddamn champion. For anyone you know at Mystic, Hoop is fucking awesome. Was just on the championship team and a very handsome individual using it. I will say Mega Kang is extremely underrated. What do you guys have this tiered again at? Like, I think it was tier 2 Mega, tier 3?
I think it's tier 3 Mega because we took rid of Seismic Toss.
Yeah, I mean, that's still ridiculous, though. I mean, this Pokemon is so amazing in so many different ways. The fact that it has a base 125 attack stat makes it such a viable breaker with basically attacking Sword Stance. You can just Sword Stance and hit something and Power Up Punch. And it also has such good defensive stats with that mono-normal typing, making it such a good defensive tank. But other than that, yeah, I mean, other than this team being a complete meme, because it's a transform-themed team, or form-themed team, that everything on this has multiple forms, or it has the ability to transform. If we're going to take it seriously in that front, I mean, that's just funny. But, you know, if we have to analyze this fully, it is still number 14, but Wolf Turds is a good coach, and there's a lot of really interesting things towards the bottom. It does suck that Mew is only defensive on this team. It really blows. But in general, I see this team, like, being hard to prep for, at least offensively, with like Hoopa Kang combination, with also Zoroark to worry about, Keldeo, Lycanroc. So those are the positives. Mainly negatives, though. This team's trash, number 14. But Wolf Turds is good, so we'll see.
Good stuff. Lily, do you want to add
I don't know,
something?
guys.
Because you had this team a little bit higher than the rest of us.
I don't know, guys. This might be a sleeper threat of. Actually only had it because while it is missing types, I could see it working just because of what is here. Like there are, aside from Wormadam, there aren't any like bad mons on this team. Like it's all stuff that could work in practice. Like you have Gastrodon, Silvally, all decent walls. Mew is decent. Mew can wall, of course. You have strong ass offensive threats like Zoroark, Hoopa, Kenga. Like it has elements that work in theory. It's just if they work together in theory is what we'll find out.
Nice.
Does Wormadam get rocks? Wormadam
It does
trash?
indeed.
It does? Okay, so it's not just Mew and Lycanroc. I mean, it's still bad. I thought it was just Mew and Lycanroc for a second.
There you go. Drav, you haven't said anything. Do you want to add something or nah?
I mainly rated it so low just because I feel like Fairy, Dragon, those are really important types to be missing. And not because of like the BFS score, that it just comes down to synergy. But it's just dragons that usually are very powerful, have a lot of coverage. Fairy is just an important type. It gives you an immunity. And then to also be missing fire and poison on top of that as well as ice. It's missing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Trav, can you not see the fairy in the 6th slot and the dragon?
And the poison and the fire. It's all
Yeah,
there.
come on, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I mean,
then.
maybe his forehead got in the way, am I right? Oh.
Good joke, Brandon. You get to go next.
Oh, thanks. Wow. This team had me scratch my head quite a bit because I don't think I've ever really seen anything like this before. This is definitely a first for me. I mean, this team is basically triple weather somehow. This is ridiculous. Mainly, though, you're looking at that sand rain core. It's so disgustingly true that this team is sand and rain. And really only sand and rain. I mean, there is negative synergy outside of that. Everything on this team gets something to benefit from weather, from top to bottom. Espeon is Magic Art, so it's immune to the... no, it's not. I'm thinking of Zam. Espeon does nothing. Completely forget my point, because I'm an idiot. But, I mean, Heliolisk has, like, the dry skin ability to function better in rain. Zard can set sunny days for, like, Heliolisk and itself. And, you know, Drill, Sandrush, Dragazult, Sandrush, Ludicolo, and Swampert are the Rain Core. Basically, he can run either weather any week, basically, and that does warrant, like, interesting prep, which is why I actually had it a bit higher up, as did Monotone. Like, it really does reward some very interesting preparation. Because, like, it's basically prepping for, like, Excadrill and Swampert, if you will, or also trying to take Hydro Pumps from Ludicolo, and also taking, like, Earthquakes from Drill. It can be very interesting, but it was just really weirdly done. I never like using the word poorly done, because that just seems rude, and honestly, who am I to say? But in general, it just seems very strange, very off the ball. And again, this team cannot function outside of weather. There are no sweepers. There are no top tier breakers. There is nothing just without weather. And the team is so slow without the speed control, without something doubling its speed stat. You're capping at Espeon at base, and that's really embarrassing. So definitely a lower tier team. I guess I was a bit higher on it than the other guys, and I'm sure they'll talk why Lily thought this was the worst team in the league. But yeah, just not too hopeful. I will also mention that it seems like that you went pretty hard on like the physical attackers on this team. Not that that's a problem, but you're putting up Rain, so Scald feels kind of free against you. You know what I'm saying? Like opposing Scald, you do have switch-ins like Pelipper and Aromatisse, but like maybe a Volcanion comes around, you know, something like that, and it's a bit hard for you to deal with. Or Keldeo, like the last team we talked about. So a couple of water absorb mons or some kind of like Toxicroak and Heliolisk or some sort of water immunity to be totally fair, but a lot of stuff doesn't like getting burned, a lot of stuff doesn't like rain boosted scalds, so that's a very minor point as well, but that's kind of what I feel about this team.
Alright, what do you say, Lily? Do you want to talk about why you ranked this the lowest?
Sure. Well, when I look at this team, all I think is, okay, it forces prep for his opponents, but how does it prep for the coach using it? I feel like he's going to, but it's gonna have the elements are kind of clash together for him to bring week by week. Like he can't really fully commit to rain. To sand, it without being predictable every week. Like if he brings the sand, you know what mons have to come that week. If he brings the rain, you know what have to come that week. It kind of all just doesn't make sense to me.
Alright, fair point. One thing that is interesting I want to add is that you do have two main cores, but what I noticed is that when you don't have your rain core, or when you have your rain core, you're lacking in setters, and when you have your sand core, you're lacking in actual removers. So that's an interesting little pairing there. So it's basically, yeah, like we said, it's either you have to run full sand or full rain, and then if you're running sand, you have no way to remove unless you put it on Excadrill, which why would you do that? And then when you have your rain cork, you have no real way to set unless you put on Mega Swampert, and again, why would you do that? Dravos, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I don't really have anything new. You guys kind of got it all pretty good. I didn't actually notice that hazard issue that you pointed out just there, Mono, but that's a really good point.
Yeah,
it's just kind of a weird team that doesn't fit that well together.
Yeah, overall it's pretty weird. I think it probably would have been better if you committed to a single type of weather rather than trying to commit to two weathers. But
honestly, man, I've actually seen somebody. God, I forget his name, but back in like GBA, there was this guy that used. He used Charizard Y on a sand team, and basically he used Charizard Y. I got the point of it. It wasn't really also a sun team. He used it to eliminate the sand when he needed to, and then utilize that really strong special attack and sun boosted Fire Blast, and then switch back to sand when need be. It was really effective, and I'm not saying that that's similarly to what you did or anything, but I will say that is something to be a little encouraging. And sand teams, rain teams, weather teams in general are never going to rank well in PRs. They look a little predictable. They look a little easy to switch into at the base. So just on paper, they're never really going to rank well in PR. So don't let this get you down. I'm sure that you'll still find a way to put this together and prove us all wrong, but just not the best team on paper.
Yeah.
Also, doubling up on 110 and 109 just seems weird speed-wise. I just saw that.
Yeah, that's also a thing to note. Obviously, when we're looking at these teams, we're looking at these teams on paper. We have no idea how you guys like to coach. Obviously, we know some because they've been around. But for the relatively new people, you could take a bottom-tier team like this, and you could easily use it to crash right through us. It happened to us before, and it can probably happen again. But it's just a matter of, can you use this team effectively?
I mean, Will's first two seasons, he was like 13 and 12, I believe, like PR-wise. And
true, and he was semi-finalist both times.
Yeah. I do it every season, man.
Does it every season? How does he do it? And how is he going to talk about our number 12 team?
We can't let that happen again, by the way.
I'll try not to, but for right now, he's just got to get through team number 12.
All right. So this team has a lot of problems. Problem number one, it's fat as fuck. This team has almost no offense. I'm looking at it right now. It's basically Rhyperior, Haxorus, and Mienshao. You capping at 105 is god awful. That there are many speeds to cap at. 105 is not one you want to have as your fastest mon, because that essentially means you're relying on bulking out hits from faster mons, or you're scarfing something every week. And if you're scarfing something every week, your opponents will catch on to that and be like, all right, I'll be ready for this scarfer. I'll be ready for this. Your hazard setters are not the greatest. I think it's literally superior in Toxapex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
you only have one rocker, only one T-Spiker. Now that one T-Spiker is pretty normal, but when that's the hazard, you're kind of forced to, if you want to set up hazards against your opponent, you're forced to bring these two mons every week now. You do have Mega Sable Eye does kind of help with the fact that you have such low hazards. What are your opponents going to do to you, seeing low hazards? Attack versus you. So what do? You draft a Magic Bounce to discourage that. Mega Sable Eye works well in that regard. Unfortunate, but that's completely unnecessary when you have default on Xatu, Rotom Heat, Mandibuzz, Scizor, Comfey. It's kind of unnecessary to draft the Magic Bounce. But luckily, you made like so many changes that you fixed all these problems. Your team only got better with these changes. You have offense now. Greninja, Manectric, Chandelure. You kept the physical offense. You got the special offense that you were extremely lacking in. You have Greninja for spikes and T-spikes now. I'd say my only problem with this team is Rhyperier's still your only, and Greninja's not the easiest spike setter. Manectric and Gren are great pivoters, which is speaking of, your team actually does that pretty well. Yen, Comfey, Xatu, Scizor, all very good pivot mons. That'll give you the momentum, the much needed momentum you're gonna want. I'd say my only problem with this team is Regigigas now. It's kind of just an awkward mon. I know, which I don't know how you're gonna manage with it. I feel like that's kind of more of a skill mon than a newbie mon.
But dude, look at those stats.
I mean, Tier 5 is kind of poopy, so, I mean, make do what you gotta make do with, and Tier 5 Regigigas is pretty cool. I mean, it is Tier 5, I'm going off the assumption
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, I thought so, because you guys completely purged Tier 5, so any value out of Tier 5 you can get is any value out of Tier 5 you can get, to be quite honest. Yeah, I mean, Lil nailed it on the head. Really, it's just that rocker now. I really like the team a lot more. Another underrated factor, I feel like Haxorus is so much better supported with this team. You have a much stronger fire type than Rotom that is willing to consistently spam fire moves other than that one overheat and kind of being clocked out. You still kept Rhyperior. You know, Greninja can turn on him. Manectric gets overheat. Mainly saying this stuff because Haxorus is basically one wall, in my opinion, is steel types that aren't weak to Earthquake. It pretty much deals with absolutely everything else. And then I know it got close combat, but when you're clicking Dragon Dance and everything, I feel like you're rather clicking your Dragon Stabs and such, because if you just look at it like, oh, well, it gets close combat, you're right, you know, it can break everything. But when it comes to locking yourself into the move Outrage, which usually will be your best way out of a match, to be able to eliminate those steel types, and I was about to say fairy types, like the likes of Scizor, and being able to pivot on them against Amoonguss. Not that Poison is the best resist for fairies, because most fairies get Psychic, and most Psychics get fairy coverage. It's kind of how it works. But there's also Comfey for just fat, so... I've always thought Glacier was weird. I've actually never seen it succeed in draft, because I've mainly only seen it draft about 3, maybe twice. And it's, like... It looks like it has great stats, but I feel like it's just a bad typing, and it's just a good typing away from being one of the better mons. Like a good tier 2. I mean, the stats look ridiculous, and I've seen Pokemon with worse stats do better. But maybe you'll just have to show us all what Glacier is all about, and maybe get it like moved up a tier or something. Who knows? but I like the team now a lot more. One rocker is a huge problem, though. I think you're cashed out on trades, so I don't know if you can really do anything about that. So just good luck. I think Lil said you were new. I think they said you were definitely new. These trades definitely make your team look more competitive, and you look like you're a real competitor now. Definitely not number 12. I think we have you at. No, definitely not number 12. I wouldn't say much higher though, because one rocker does suck. But good job for sure. Good team. Now, I guess.
Yeah, it was a very good team. We didn't really have time to look over the new sort of transactions and re-rank it, so we just kind of put it here so we can make you note to know that you did make better choices and that your team would be higher. We just didn't have time to do that.
Yeah, you actually posted today a recording.
Yeah. Dravos, do you have anything to add, or were all your lines taken?
I
doing
think
that.
all of my... Oh, it's not a problem.
He's just
I think all my
sitting in
lines
the
are
back.
taken.
Well,
Except Lil never mentioned Scizor when he was naming off offense, and I think of Scizor as an offensive mon as well. So I will just throw that.
Nice. We're adding
all as a matter of fact. Like, by the way, you guys hear that sass? All right, I get you.
Oh, damn.
Dude, this thing is so godlike with Lele. Just ask Brad.
True.
Well, great job, Dravos. You added a lot that time, and you get to add a lot this time, because now it's your turn to go first.
Queen. Go off, Queen.
All right, Shad. You know, your master plan, it kind of fell through round one when you picked him on that you immediately regretted. But you say you've salvaged it. But I don't know, man. It's just... I'm not a huge fan of your team, if I'm being honest. It just... I know it's unfair to say that it's very dependent on Rillaboom, because you've drafted around the idea of taking Rillaboom. I feel like, at least the way you've explained things, it kind of falls apart a lot without Rillaboom. You said Hawlucha only runs unburdened sets, and it only does it by activating through terrain. Well, if Rillaboom's not there, then Hawlucha's useless. You got a lot of ground weaknesses: Drapion, Arcanine, Mega Mawile, Alolan Golem. So you're really kind of relying on that weakened EQs. Delmise, I think you might have mentioned something about it clicking Grassy Glide, so it's another mon dependent on Rillaboom. So now you're already at 6 you're bringing for the week, and you don't even have Rillaboom on the team. Like, I mean, I'm kind of just poking fun at you a little bit, but I don't know. I see a lot of fire weaknesses in here. Like, I feel like a strong fire type is going to really tear through the team. I mean, like, your dragon doesn't resist fire. Mega Mawile is something that you're probably going to want to bring each week. It's just going to attract fire types. You mainly have Flash Fire Arcanine to take that on. Let's see. You got a lot of great physical breakers. I mean, like, no one's doubting Kyurem or Arcanine, Rillaboom, Mega Mawile. But your special offense is lacking a little bit in my mind. Like, it's just not quite up to the same level as your physical. Other than that, I believe you have a lot of ways to set hazards, but your removal isn't the strongest. Hawlucha is probably never bring defog. And other than that, you only have Delmise as your real spinner. Sandslash is probably coming like twice the season at most. And Komala's a great mon, but you have a lot of mons fighting for a spot on the team already. So it's going to end up being Delmise a lot, in my opinion. Other than that, you do have some good pivoting, though. A lot of great mons. Rillaboom's a great pivot. Get up the grassy terrain for your team. Help tank hits. Arcanine's a great mon. Those teleports are great. Yeah, just kind of... It feels kind of dependent all on grassy terrain being up in my mind.
That is very true.
Fair enough, yeah.
Who wants to add anything, or is it my turn to add?
So, Dravos, when you were talking about fire weaknesses, you completely skipped over he has a poly with Drizzle.
Yes, the Rain
that's right.
Core.
Or a Flash Fire user.
Yeah, I guess.
No,
I
you
actually
mentioned that.
kind of did forget about Polytoad.
Oh, he did? I didn't hear him say it. I guess I was too busy sipping my tea.
I do feel like Politoed is kind of a weird water type on this team. Like, I feel like I know it's like your favorite. That's great. You're drafting Mon you like. Go for it. But I feel like just as the only water type on this team, the only benefit it really brings to the team is it weakens fire. I think Mawile also kind of struggles on this team. It likes pivoters, but all your pivoters are decently fast. Orbeetle, Rillaboom. Basically, it's relying on Arcanine, Komala to get it in there for you. I will give you the benefit. Rillaboom does force switches, therefore you turning with that actually pretty good for getting Mawile in. But if you don't force switches, I feel like Mawile and Rillaboom are kind of walled by the same thing. To be honest, steel types, flying types, both specifically flying types with good backup typings like Moltres, Zapdos. Yeah.
Nice.
Ooh, okay. I actually have a couple of new points
Go
to
for
bring
it,
to the
sir.
table. I'm so excited. This team has negative defense, by the way. I don't know if anybody said that, actually. I know we talked about special attackers being non-existent, but I feel like defense is not good either. Not a lot of really strong defensive Pokemon, mainly like pivots. Like, for instance, Walls consist of like Orbeetle, and I guess I'd say Politoed. I've had a hard time breaking Politoed in the past. But like Sandslash feels more like a pivot with its awful special defense and subpar HP. Same as Kamala, at least on the HP department, and its awful defense. This team doesn't take hits, really. It really doesn't. And it's Brandon, so I got to talk about speed tiers. Here's the deal with Hawlucha, especially with you declaring it really only has one set, especially the coach actually adding to the fact that the Mon's very one-dimensional. No one is going to prepare for base 118 Hawlucha. For one, you're going to run Adamant most weeks because it has 92 attack, which is awful, at least for the sweeper caliber that it's supposed to be. And two, it's not going to matter with Unburdened anyway. So basically, when people are prepping for you, they're just going to worry about that base 95. So if something hits over 317 and they can run Adamant doing so, they're going to do it. They're not going to care that you have a Hawlucha. They're just going to build a good switch into a Swords Dance Adamant Hawlucha, which is much easier than you might think, and then punish you for awful speed tiers. Like, speed control doesn't fix bad speed tiers. You know, I don't know how many times I've said that, but like weather and speed control like this, where you're abusing priority with things like Delmise and Rillaboom, not the best offensive core, by the way. It's pretty much the same thing. Not good, you know, not the best, and very easy to play around. Very easy to bring Fat Mons in against you, and then make good switches and punish you with good offense and speed. It's not hard to do that to this team. This is why I don't like it. He's probably gonna whoop my ass later this season. Let's just see it. Like, let's just watch him destroy me for saying this. But this team feels like one of the easiest teams to prepare for in the league, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, I didn't see any of the chat about him saying like this is a master plan or whatever, but I'm not seeing it either personally. And it's all in good fun, man. We're just messing with you, but overall points still stand. I don't like the team either.
All right, good stuff. I guess it's my turn. All right, I'm gonna be honest with you, Shad. If I get the chance, which I think I do have the chance this season, I will go. I am going to run through your team with an Aggron, and I don't think there's much you can do to stop me. Like, very honestly, I don't think there's much you can do to stop Aggron other than Arcanine and maybe Kyurem.
God, Monotone, you're supposed to be the nice one.
Well, I ranked him the lowest, so I'm not the nice one today.
I'm the nice one.
True.
I didn't even mention speed tiers.
Yeah, well,
I
speed
was charging
tiers.
that one up.
Yeah, speed tiers is important, and having only a single Mon above base 100 is very scary, especially since you said it will be unburdened most times, meaning that people won't really have to prep for it, and they'll mostly just be focusing on Kyurem or Drapion or Arcanine, which are all Pokemon that can be outsped and have tons of damage dealt to them, especially if you have to run defensive Arcanine or defensive Drapion.
Hawlucha's going to have a lot of bad matchups.
Hawlucha's going to have a lot of bad matchups, and I don't think there is much you can do to support those bad matchups.
Basically, they, like defensive flying types that just switch out against Kirim, nightmare for you. Like you can't deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Also, I'd like to bring up that having Sandslash on a team with grassy terrain is basically useless. The only thing they'll be here for is defense. Because, of course, as you know, big problem with grassy terrain, it drops the power of Earthquake. And Sandslash is a Pokemon who likes to have Earthquake.
It probably gets Earth Power with that very powerful base 45 special attack.
Yes,
monotone.
of course.
So
how could I forget that? But yeah,
Must he forget?
normally when you're running a grassy terrain team, you want to have a ground type who can run moves that are not Earthquake. Which we do have someone who has done that this season, but we're going to get to them later. But yeah, I think overall, like they said, you do have a big problem with fire types. Also looking at it, you have a big problem with ground types. Other than, of course, grassy terrain with your two grass types. But like I said, Earth Power can easily pull apart Pokemon like Drapion and Arcanine. Rain is interesting. I don't know if you're ever going to use Rain, but I don't think it really hurts this team, but I don't think it really supports this team a lot. The only Pokemon who doesn't want Rain is Arcanine, which kind of sucks, but what are you going to do? But yeah.
And Sandslash, to be fair.
Yeah, Sandslash can be supported.
And it's kind of the same argument before where Scald's more free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also that. Especially with Pokemon like...
You want to go like Rillaboom on the water types, and then it's rain boosted Scalds that could burn too.
Rain
like,
boosted
it's just not good.
Scalds, yeah. Also, I noticed that besides Hawlucha and Drapion, all of your setters or movers are super low tiers, which all have very exploitable weaknesses. So, does he have transactions? I think he does, because the only thing he really traded out was Lele, which apparently he couldn't get rid of.
Yeah, he has his full 5 regular transactions.
Ah, perfect. I'm going to suggest you use all 5 of those. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but please do something. I'm not trying to be super rude, but with the cores you have right now that you're planning to use, your Pokemon are not well supported by it.
Ooh, he's gonna love this video.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. I came off very rude, and that's
not trying to be rude. Your team's just a little one-dimensional.
Yeah, the team is one-dimensional, but I don't think it really has a lot to support that one dimension.
And bullet point on Sandslash, it has no ability on this team.
It has no what?
Ability.
True, because its only ability is Sand Rush.
Oh.
Yup.
Yup.
But it does have Drill Run for using
there you go, Drill Run.
Terrain.
Of course. How could I forget
for those
Drill Run?
crits.
Gotta get that base 100 attack stat to use a weaker move and less accurate.
Mm-hmm.
But high critical hit ratio.
We'll see. If this is your big plan and you show all 4 of us up, I'm willing for it. You can do whatever you want, but I just don't think that this team is built for that, unfortunately.
Hey, Monotones, we're gonna double here with number 10.
Oh, is it my turn again? Hooray!
He's got done talking a whole lot, and you're working a double here. Let's see it.
I'm used to it. We can do this. So Sanguine Scizors. This was originally a dual coach team, but now it's just half of the team. Well, half of coaches. We got Jellyfish running the team this time. It's a very interesting team. Speed tiers we'll start off with. They're a bit better. I don't know how often Alolan Persian is actually going to come and be this fast 115. So really it's on Scolipede, but then once you get past Galarian Zapdos, speed tiers kind of fall off to Rotom-Mow. Rotom-Mow can be more offensive, but with the team you sort of have prepped, I feel like it'll be more defensive, especially to support Mega Blastoise, who likes to have someone who can come in for grass types. Speaking of which, Mega Blastoise is a very interesting Pokemon. I've used it before. I think one of the biggest problems is that with the setup you have, it is one of your only hazard removers besides Rotom-Mow. So having to pick one of those to be your removers is going to suck. Granted, you do have Hatterene, which can kind of scare hazards off the field. But if that Pokemon trying to set up has a good poison move or a good steel move, they can easily just kind of punish you for trying to come in on the hazard setup. In terms of setting, you do have some good stuff. You have Heatran, you have Stakataka, I believe Diggersby gets spikes, Scolipede gets toxic spikes, so there's some good stuff on the setting side. It's just, I feel like the removing side is a bit weak. Heatran, Stakataka feel weird on the same team. They both have quad weaknesses to ground, and each have weaknesses to water. Which, as we've seen before, we have just went over 2 teams who have rain users, so that'll be very dangerous to you. What else do I have to say about this team? I don't think much. This feels like a team that kind of wants to be a Trick Room team, but they didn't kind of go fully into it. Granted, you still could do Trick Room shenanigans with Pokemon like Stakataka, Hatterene, and Dusclops, but I don't feel like it's something that you can pull up that too often, because you don't have a lot of variety when it comes to that. Does someone want to chime in?
It's just, I can't get over the candy I just had. Like, oh god, I love monotone. But yeah, I can go. Rotom doesn't always run speed. I think that's fair to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Goodra like never runs speed.
Mm-hmm.
Stoys usually doesn't. I'm not saying there are never going to be matchups where you run max speed Stoys, but likely not. And Diggersby likes Adamant. So like, it's a bigger gap than you think when you start looking at like applicables and not just the numbers. Because sometimes Rotom is going to need to be a switch in, especially for mons like Zapdos. Because Zapdos is pretty bird weak.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Heatran can only take so much punishment, and then some of those birds weirdly do get like fighting and ground moves. It's weird. Like the Celesteal is earthquaking, or the Staraptors close combating.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just weird there. Monotone did cover a lot, so I have sort of less to say about this team. It is cool. I will say it is cool that there is a Trick Room aspect to this team. And I do think it was done relatively right. Because, like, a min-speed Diggersby, like, you know, 0 IVs, 0 EVs, speed-lowering nature, works really well with that. And it's so hard-hitting, it can be really disruptive. And you also have good breakers like Hatterene. In Trick Room, of course. Outside of Trick Room, Hatterene is hot-ass garbage. Doesn't take a hit, dies immediately, hate that thing. And then Stakataka is the underrated threat. Just ask a Crispy Panda what he thinks about that mon. It's really good. And then, I mean, Dusclops is there too, I guess, to cause some shenanigans. Not quite in Trick Room. I don't think it really has any applicable use there. Maybe those base 70 Poltergeists will really prove me wrong. Yeah, I have less to say other than that. I mean, you covered the hazard removal, right? Or the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, rocks hazard removal isn't the best. So, yeah, that's really all I had to say.
One of my biggest issues with this team is just there's not much physical breaking power. There's Scolipede needing a Sword Stance, there's Zapdos and Sakataka and Diggersby. But like it's not getting into that like easily banded, like fast offense. Like it's gonna be a lot of Zapdos coming to break the physical offense. So then your opponent just brings like, I don't know, 1 to 2 really strong Spadef walls, maybe put an AV on them. And then the whole team just gets a lot easier to deal with. It just, there's not a whole lot threatening the opposing team every single week, I feel like, other than special attackers.
Even then are all right. I mean, again, applicably, Goodra really mostly runs defense, right? So that base 110 doesn't look as strong. And then 105 from Rotom's never been ever really spectacular, even spamming Leaf Storms. So again, just Blastoise and Heatran, really. And then Hatterene in Trick Room, again, because that mon can't switch into shit. So it's just like, just really strange. But, you know, it's up here for a reason. There's definitely a lot of applicability to it. I wouldn't say it was just a reason if we hated it less than anything else. I see myself using this team better than any of the other teams we've already named.
Lily, do you have anything to add?
I feel like Zapdos really It is a mon that likes a nice hazard.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I
And
mean, it's built around it.
it kind of is. He has the skull the best because at most maybe it gets off 1 or 2 spikes, and then probably endeavors something down, assuming he goes with that set, of course. And then he has the Heatran stack attacker for rocks, I believe.
Yeah, he's got Diggersby for spikes too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's a Diggersby. You typically want to click the nuke button when you bring them on.
I get that, but there is some merit to saying Pokemon that force switches aren't bad hazard setters. It does mean they're not taking damage.
Next, you're gonna tell me Landorus Eye is the best.
Very best. Better than anyone.
The removal is also pretty low. I'm sure that was talked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just Zapdos kind of doesn't super fit on this team.
And neither does Scolipede, to be fair. Scolipede also likes hazards. Because it's very weak.
Yeah.
All right.
You're ready to go
Into the single digits.
into the single digits.
Wow, Monotone hated this team. Okay, then. Jeez. All right. Hey, I do not know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry.
I think it's Jarich, like with a Y instead of a J.
Jarich? Okay.
Mhm.
Hey, what's up? I'm Isle Kid. I think I've actually said hi to you once, like in the Discord chat, so what's good? Awkward intros aside. Super interesting team, man. I love Floatzel. I just want to point that out. Like, I know it's so irrelevant to the actual point of the team, but I love Floatzel, so I'm not going to be criticizing that mon throughout this entire thing. I'm going to let one of them do it. And they're going to be wrong because Floatzel's probably the best mon in draft, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to start with how I feel about this team's sort of theme. It definitely looks like some pivot switch offense that I like to use personally. That's sort of why I was up there with Dravos on rating it. There's a lot of stuff that can pivot around on this team, like Galvantula, Corviknight, Umbreon, and I'm sure Darmanitan. So a lot of good pivots. Like there might be that 4 number. There might be a baton pass user I'm missing, but like 4 or 5. And they're all good mods too. Like Galvantula usually runs Volt Switch right. Darm usually runs U-turn. And then it's good to get those mods in like Sceptile, Salazzle, you know, Darmanitan I just mentioned. Even something crazy like a Banded Armaldo or Hitmonchan. There's a lot of synergy there, and I quite like it. I quite like the speed tier drop off of the team. I don't mind it capping out at Salazzle. It's not the best 117, and I know there's Sceptile up there, but the idea of the sort of speed tier conversation is speed tier usually it forces prep for a certain reason. There's a reason why we're so critical about having base 130s, base 120s. It's because on this particular team, like say, you know, base 130s are more comfortable to run more bulk because they only have to match Salazzle's speed tier. So that allows like 80 HP investment, which does matter. It's not completely irrelevant. It's a bit better on this team though, because again, Salazzle is kind of at that 117 point where 130s still can't run Adamant and Modest because 130s cap at 359 and Salazzle's like 8 points higher than that. So it's there and it's not terrible. And then Sceptile is just so far up the food chain that you're never going to be able to outspeed it anyway. So mainly as long as you have like base 130s to keep it honest and keep it not running Modest or Adamant, which it can do. Base 110 attack, by the way, definitely can run physical. So that's kind of the reasoning. I know I've probably explained that about 100 times, but we get some new coaches every now and again, so I figured refresh on that knowledge every now and again. But talking about the rest of the team, like I said, just a switch offense, the speed tiers do descend well. 117. You also have Floatzel at 115, 108, 96. And something else at 95 when Mimikyu's like a Swords Dance set and isn't impacting the game as much because it's in the back. Cresselia actually can run speed because it's so damn bulky. Like sometimes it doesn't need to run investment and it can be a bit faster. I can see Hitmonchan being a bit faster. There are a couple of unmons on this team. Like, I do like Armaldo, but it's kind of an unmon, not really something that impacts the game very much, unfortunately. It has bad defenses and bad speed. It has that only attack stat synergy, like, sort of symptom. And, you know, Hitmonchan is definitely an interesting choice. But again, you know, I think this actually was priced at tier 4. Is that right? That makes less sense to me then.
Which one?
Would have grabbed something. Hitmonchan.
Yeah, we moved up tier 4.
Yeah, I wouldn't have paid tier 4 for that, especially I think because Hitmonlee is still on the board. I definitely wouldn't have paid tier 4 for that, especially because I think Hitmonlee is very good. But just in general, you know, mid-tier team for sure. It's definitely got its flaws. I'd even say defensively, it's definitely not perfect. Setup can break it. You Toxic or Taunt that Cresselia set up against this team. It doesn't have much for that. It can feel kind of passive in certain places. But I'm sure when it gets going, it's really crazy. Even something like I said, Banded Floatzel could be very good for the pivots, and the setup is really good as well. I think Sceptile gets Swords Dance too, so it has.
It's Dragon Dance too.
Oh, it does? I didn't even know that. So it has aspects like throughout the team, and there's a lot to like, and it does a lot well, but you know, nothing too absolutely spectacular. It is a mid-tier team for sort of a reason, so that's my thoughts.
Nice.
I want to add in, I really, really love the Mega Sceptile Corviknight Quagsire core. Having to click grass attacks on Quagsire lets Mega Sceptile in so easy, and then you have great things to switch out to. Corviknight to support Quagsire and Sceptile. Sceptile can potentially come in for free on a Thunderbolt aimed at Corviknight. I actually had Corviknight and Mega Sceptile down in my draft plans for the longest time before. So I'm a huge fan of that pairing, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's really good.
Yeah, no, he did a really good job with those guys, with those couple mons, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's very nice.
This team I think I'd use, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
This is like kind of like my drafting style. This is real good.
Lily, do you want to add something here?
So, small problem I have with this. I'm looking at it, and realistically, the Corviknight on a team that has like 3 mons weak to rocks that don't want to run 3 or 4 mons. Darmanitan is obviously going to be tactic. It's going to be going for that choice item 90% of the time. Galvantula likes the extra boost of a Specs or a Life Orb. Salazzle likes the Black Sludge sub shenanigans as well as. And then Armaldo does whatever Armaldo does.
Armaldo really only runs boots.
Mm-hmm.
It's boots and leftovers, and on a team like this, it's forgivable to just run boots.
Alright, I guess I will kind of talk about this because I ranked it very much lower than the others. I think my main problem lies with what Lily was getting at with the hazards. Like he said, your only real setters are Corv and Armaldo. You do have Galvantula there for sticky webs, but that's not really a super offensive hazard. Stealth rocks are really important, and because Armaldo is a Pokemon that you probably won't bring too often, it'll be forced onto Corviknight, and Corviknight doesn't want to have to run hazards every week. It wants to do fun. It can do fun stuff like you can
Corv
do.
does not get hazards.
Does not get rocks, my guy.
Corv does not get rocks? Was I wrong?
It's just Armaldo.
Oh, so it's just Armaldo. Okay.
Corv is his only defogger.
Ah, that's what I was
What
thinking.
you're
Of. I
thinking.
knew Corv was involved with something, so it's defogging. Gotcha.
I did kind of forget Quag doesn't get rocks too.
Yeah, Quag's kind of unfortunate it doesn't get rocks. That was one of the reasons that I unfortunately had to drop it last season.
I mean, no rocks. It doesn't change my analysis too terribly much, but it still does change it. That really isn't that good. You gotta probably find a way to fix that.
But yeah. And then hazards, it's just Armaldo, and then you have Galvantula for webs, but really Armaldo is the only one with an offensive hazard. Then we get to Defoggers with his Corviknight, like we said before, and then you have Hitmonchan and Armaldo once again. So Hitmonchan is the same thing as Armaldo. I feel like it's Pokemon you won't bring as often as you feel like you might need to because it's one of your only removers. So that position will fall onto Corviknight, and then Corviknight, while it can run Defog and it can run effectively, it doesn't always want to have run Defog. I know that Dravos can speak with me when it says it can do fun things like run bulk upsets with body press, or it can do other offensive things. So while it does fill a good defensive role, it should be allowed to be a bit offensive. And then, like we said, with your Pokemon who are weak to rocks, mainly Darmanitan, Galvantula, Salazzle, while those are Pokemon that can run boots if they need to, they shouldn't, or can run boots when they have to, they shouldn't always feel like they need to run boots. Especially with Pokemon like Salazzle, I've used it before, and I know that if you give Salazzle the opportunity to be super offensive, then it can carry with that super offensive. But if you have to run a boot set every week, then that offense kind of falls off. Same with Galvantula and same with Darmanitan.
And yeah, the special attackers aren't really there on this team either, except like Sceptile, Salazzle, and Galv.
Yeah, special attackers are pretty weak, unfortunately. But that's about it. And we all gave our 2-piece. So then, Lily, you get to go into number 8.
Alright. Bass. When I first looked at this team, I didn't think it was all that. I looked. This is. I will say, I don't like the triple flying. It feels a little repetitive, especially when all 3 are rock, and 2 of them are physical offensive mons. Your 2 fastest mons being rock types kinda sucks, especially when I feel like Arrow and Diancie clash with each other a bit. They're both rock types that don't like steel. Your hazard setters are, when it comes to hazard setters, I actually Chestnut is an amazing spiker. Swampert a very reliable rocker, as well as Blissey being good, but not necessarily always has the move. And then Weezing is very good at setting up T-spikes. In terms of defog, you are very lacking, but the ones that you have, it's basically going to be Weezing every week. Articuno, Mence, and Arrow obviously all get it, as Articuno is going to be an Salamence. On this team, I would think it's better for offense, and Arrow just doesn't. Pivot-wise, you're very lacking in it. I basically just see Swampert, Magnezone, and Victini. Liepard is a maybe bring, and then Articuno as well as. Now, while you do have 3 flying types, weakness decently well with a Chestnut and Swampert, and you basically took off the which would be the because it would break the Magnet Chestnut pretty easily. I feel like Jellicent and Swampert kind of play the same kind of role on this team. Maybe you drafted Jellicent in hopes of Swampert running offensive, but I think offensive Swampert is not the greatest use of the Mon. It can do it, but it kind of just likes being damage sponge for your team. Breakers, Diancie is amazing. Salamence is a Mon that can tear through teams, especially late game. And then Victini is a Mon that will do massive damage if you use it well. Anyone else got anything to say?
I have a big issue with the double rock, double fairy, double water, and triple flying. I feel like usually when you double up on a type, you want to mostly not share weaknesses between the doubling up of types. And I feel like a lot of you doubling up on types like Jellicent and Swampert is just compounding the weaknesses. Like, they're both weak to grass, for example. Diancie and Aerodactyl are both weak to steel. It's a lot of compounding weaknesses. And I personally really don't like that. That coupled with a third of your team being base 60, pretty much everything below Salamence isn't really running speed. It just creates a lot of like awkward spots within your team. But that being said, you do have some good defensive pivots. Swampert is a great flip turn mon. Magnezone gets teleport. We haven't seen it in the league before, but I'm sure you'll be able to put it to some good use. Blissey is a great teleport Pokemon. Just a lot of like weird areas where the team really just missed. And for me personally, it doesn't really make up for the things you're doing well.
Yeah, and you also want them to have different roles when you double up on that many types, and it just doesn't really feel that way on this team. Like, Arrow and Salamence kind of do similar stuff, and what's the other? What was the two waters again? Wasn't it?
Swampert, Jellicent.
Yeah, Swampert, Jellicent, two fat waters. You know what I mean? Like, usually you want to do that. I also like to say, Blissey gets teleport, by the way. Just saying, so it's not just U-turners and volt switchers. There's also Blissey down there. That can run it. Actually, it's the reason why it doesn't want to run rocks is because nowadays I'd rather run teleport. But yeah, this is one of those situations. I got Dravos here. A lot of my points are already taken here, so I'll just say it can definitely be. I don't want to give up too many keys either because this is my week 1 opponent, but it can definitely have some pretty sleeper aspects to the offense. Like, it's really easy to prep for something like Diancie and prep for something like Victini and overlook like Dragonantic Salamence. Or it's very easy to think you can break the team and overlook like a Levitate Weezing. So I just say, like, be thorough with this team. It is, number 8. It's a little bit up there. It's not crazy good. There's still 7 teams better, but in general, yeah. Pros and cons. Good job.
Yeah, that was good.
I do want to make a second bullet point. I think there is a pretty big problem. Fastest mons are all priority moves. I see 3 Aqua Jet weaknesses, 2 Bullet Punch. Ice Shard is a problem.
Mach Punch can be a problem because they're really neutral.
That's a good point. Also, Liepard is your 3rd fastest mon. That's kind of an issue.
Alright, some good additions. Dravos, are you ready?
Dead center.
I'm ready.
Alright, well, your chance of getting kicked is on the line because you're talking about the commissioner.
7 out of 14, baby. You did it. You did it, Joker. You hit the average.
You hit the average.
I feel like this just isn't... You've put together much better teams before, Joker. You got some interesting things going on, like Vaporeon, Sylveon, like... That sounds really disgusting, just wish passing back and forth. But at the same time, that's 2 spots on your team that are going to be taken out to just wish passing to support the rest of your team. So while they are, Vaporeon's really not that offensive, like, if it's wish passing. Sylveon can still do some good damage, but that's just a lot of, like, initial power sacrificed right away just for your whole, like, little wish passing core right there, which kind of works, it kind of doesn't. I ran Sylveon and Alomola together before, and it's just, it kind of works, but it's weird. But you do have some great things going on. I really like Ferrothorn and Latios. They're covering each other's weaknesses pretty decent. Ferrothorn only being weak to fire and fighting. Latios covers those well. Arrow and Ferrothorn are a pretty nice combo. You got some good rockers and great Spiker and Ferrothorn to kind of wear things down to make it easier for Aerodactyl. You know, you got some great breakers. Obscune, Toxtricity is very threatening. Infernape can be a little bit of a problem. It's a third of a perfect offensive core. It's tough to know if it's going to be a special or physical attacker each week. I mean, it's a move pool is a lot more inclined to physical, but
Could
it
just
can run
drop a
special.
Draco. It could just drop a Draco. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah, it's all up in the air. You know, it's a solid team. It's just you've definitely done better in my opinion. Your speed tiers are pretty nice, 150, 120, 110, 108, 95. But I don't see Doug Trio coming as often as you might want at 120. Which then it drops from Mega Arrow to Latios, which is kind of rough. But you do have a lot of mons that can boost speed. Toxtricity wants to shift gears. Infernape gets priority. Obscune and... Well, not really Obscune. Infernape and Latios can run Scarf pretty easy. But the gap between Obscune and Toxtricity is kind of big. But you do have good walls. I mean, Runerigus, Avalugg. I just think you're going to have a hard time fitting on everything you need while also maintaining that Vaporeon, Sylveon, Wishing core.
Yeah, I actually had an interesting point about this team. I think Aerodactyl was built around so well. Albeit Doug Trio is the big garbage can. That thing really sucks, but hey, it's more for Steel types, you know, and really that I always it seems like I have a theme of I like Pokemon and teams that have an easy time against Steel types. It's kind of a theme of mine because a lot of these really good mons outside of like good Fire types appreciate Steel types being chipped. And then another thing, just defensive, like not necessarily resists, but like really big normal types or like really defensive fairy types. Aerodactyl doesn't really have good super effective coverage for those, so it's mainly just hitting it with its stabs without too terribly usable of an ability outside of clicking dual wing beat. And then, so, like, he's got a lot to put things in range, like a +1 Earthquake, whether he decides to run Hone Edge or Dragon Dance. Like I said, Dougie and Infernape. Just clicking, like, Specs, you know, Specs Boom Burst is going to be really helpful for the second point that I made about, like, just some of the fatter mons that aren't necessarily resist to Aerodactyl, but they're just really bulky. It's going to be really nice to help chip those things down, pairing Aerodactyl with a really great, especially offensive like Specs or Throat Spray threat. I was going to make the same point about Obstagoon. It does a lot more damage than perceived for some reason with its multitude of abilities. Did pay a tier 2 pricing for it. Not sure I would have done that. And then another thing Aerodactyl likes is how much pivoting there is on this team. Because albeit Vaporeon, Sylveon, maybe not the best, but two very slow pivoters that he has to choose from on a week-to-week basis. Then he has his offensive pivots as well with Toxtricity and Infernape. So, like, rocks aren't great, but, you know, I think Aerodactyl was built around pretty well outside of hazard stacking, not necessarily being the best. I say that with a Ferrothorn down there. Never mind. Just don't mind me on that last point. I am the big stupid, but, yeah, it's definitely interesting that how well Aerodactyl was built around, I felt.
I find something kind of funny about you.
Did we lose him?
It was
Yeah,
a transaction.
Oh, wait, the Ferrothorn thing was?
The Aerodactyl was a transaction.
Oh.
It was originally
Seriously?
Latios was Dracovish, Vaporeon was Gardevoir, Arrow was a Mega Tyranitar, and then Sylveon was Milotic.
Accidental. That's kind of crazy. So I guess Tyranitar was built around well then, because I'm basically just talking about the prowess of a good rock type on this team.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask, do we... Or after the changes better?
Well, I don't have one before the changes, so this is what we're going
I
with.
like this. I'm sure
like
this is the better
this.
team.
I think it's the better team.
Yeah. I want to talk about one thing, which I don't know if we went over a lot, which is your options for hazard removal. Because right now, Aerodactyl and Latios both get access to Defog, but neither really wants to run it. So that leaves your removal to Masquerain and Avalugg, which is quite the solid options if you ask me. But honestly, I don't think this affects the team too much other than Aerodactyl, because that's one of the only Pokemon on this team that's weak to rocks, with the other two ironically being Masquerain and Avalugg. So while it may not be a big deal for most Pokemon, I feel like Aerodactyl getting that chip in when it has to swap in on a Stealth Rock is going to hurt you a lot, especially with all that offense that it wants to have. Oh, it's just a little something. Lily, do you want to add anything?
I guess not.
I think we've...
Travis
What were
is
you gonna
dying.
say, Brandon?
I just said Dravos made a good point. I mean, like, this is not a bad team, but dude, you have actually put together some really good teams. And I know you might be experimenting or whatever, but I was just a little unimpressed this time around. I mean, it's still number 7, still literally dead in the middle, like I said before. But I've given you some top ratings in the past because I've really like seen you develop so much as a drafter and a builder. So this might be a step back, but it's just I'm sure you're just experimenting with new stuff. So
I think last season we even put him in like top 3, and that was like a season where we
Pretty
had
sure he was
super
second.
strong teams.
So
That is correct.
we all experiment sometimes. Like I honestly don't really like my team that much this season personally. And we'll talk about that later. But
Who's next? I'm next. Yay. Who do we got up next? It's this time, is it? Hi, Airthorn. How you doing? So
it's the same team every time.
So, Airthorn, I'm gonna have to sit down and have a chat with you, buddy, because you like to draft teams that are very one-dimensional. Like, I'm looking through this team, and most of your Pokemon
shout
only.
out. He has all the Alolan starters.
He does. I was going to bring that up, but that's a good point. He has all 3 Alolan starters.
Only his slow response shows you how good Alolan starters are.
But yeah, when I look through this team, a big thing is that most of these Pokemon, pretty much all of them, only fill one role, which is a big problem I notice you have, which, granted, each of those Pokemon can fill that one role pretty well, but sometimes you want to have Pokemon who can have a little bit of variety and have a little bit of mixing up with what they want to do. But when you look through, Mega Pidgeot just wants to be fast offense, Jirachi just kind of wants to be bulky-ish offense, Miltank wants to be a tank, Rotom Wash wants to be a defogger, Illumise is going to exist, I guess. Big shouts at you grabbing Garbodor, though. That's actually something we were joking about when we were originally starting to put together a list, was that you should grab Garbodor, and you did. So good job on that.
Fire pick.
Yeah, all 3 Alolan starters is funny. That's very cool. I don't know if you planned for that or if it just kind of happened. But either way, it's something cool just to add to the sort of pizzazz to the team, I guess.
Some weird synergy. They got some pretty weird synergy, to be totally fair.
They do. They have some weird synergy. In terms of your hazard removal and setting, I feel like setting's mainly going to come to Miltank and Gliscor. You can put it on Pokemon like Jirachi and Lycanroc, but they're less adamant to want to use it because they want to run different things like setup or just more offense. And when it comes to your removal, it's going to be Gliscor, which again wants to be a stealth rocker usually, Rotom Wash, which can do it well, and Illumise, which is probably going to be on the bench for most of the season. Decidueye and Mega Pidgeot both have defog. Mega Pidgeot never wants to have it, and Decidueye is just kind of, I don't know. Does Decidueye like to run defog? I haven't used Decidueye much.
Kinda.
Kinda?
Yeah.
I feel like
It
defensive
depends
sets
if you have to.
aren't as good as you think they are.
Both, you know what I mean? Like, you really want to have that freedom. You want your opponent to be like, dang, this could be a trapping set. Dang, this could be a spec set. Wow, this thing could just wall me. You want that, and it's not that here.
Yeah. Other than that, team's pretty solid. You have a lot of pivoting throughout the whole team. I think you might actually have the best pivoting in the whole league, which is very cool. But yeah,
Gold star there.
but yeah, it's just because of the whole team just kind of being that sort of one note wants to click that one thing that you know it's going to click. It just kind of put you just slightly out of the top 5.
I will say there are mons you can get very creative with. Jirachi, it can really do a whole lot of things. There's not like just Jirachi runs this set. No, it can do a lot of things. I want to see you get creative with it. Gliscor is great defensively, but it doesn't have to be defensive every week. It can be offensive. It can run speed. It can run like a Swords Dance set. Como can run
every week.
Yeah. Como can run a variety of sets. Incineroar can run a couple different sets. I've even seen a Power Trip set one time. Like, Miltank invites a lot of creativity, depending upon the matchup, of course. Yeah, there is creativity here, but I'd like to see you take advantage of unexpected sets.
It's a UI too, to be totally fair. I know I said it's harder to do on this team, but it's there for sure. You could just run a Swords Dance Gliscor and sweep Isle Kid. You could do that.
Yeah.
I will say there are two like painfully similarities on this team to my playstyle in particular. You know how much I preach about Volturn, and Monotone already made that point, but you also drafted Lycanroc to fix speed tiers, and that's something I do every draft. I was going to do it this draft, but both the Lycanrocs got taken the same round I was going to take it. So...
What about Dusk? Or not Dusk, what about Dawn? Whatever it's called. I don't remember its name.
It's called Midnight.
Midnight. Who cares? No one uses it.
It's not fixing speed tiers, and that's actually a very viable tier 5, by the way. That is a base 82 speed tier, faster than base 80s, with a base like 115 attack stat and no guard stone edges. Sign me up. But outside of that, Mon, the only point that I'm gonna add, mainly because everything pretty much got gone over, because it is pretty one-dimensional, man. It's pretty obvious what these mods are gonna do. There is not a lot of room for creativity. I love you, man, but we've really seen you do this a lot. But I will say that Rotom Wash and Primarina are bad together. Damn near useless. I don't really see them supporting each other well at all. They're going to be clashing for a spot. You never want mons like that. Either keep Rotom Wash or keep Primarina. Either of them work on this team in general. Rotom Wash is good pivots and adds to the defog, whereas Primarina is very fat and provides a very bulky fairy for the majority of the team, which, of course, every team loves a bulky fairy that can hit hard. But you got to commit to one, man. You have to find more synergy in the team in general, whichever you would rather lose, in my opinion. Even Incineroar and Decidueye are fine, but Illumise is just bad. But like I already said about tier 5, kind of hard to find a good tier 5 anyway. I think Pinsir was like tier 5 or something.
Pinsir is tier 5. Pinsir is a great tier 5.
That would have been just infinitely better. Yeah, like infinitely better to do that. So
doesn't someone else have Pinsir?
I don't know.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. Nah, I don't think they do.
Well, we may see it afterwards. Lily, do you have anything to note?
I have the Pinsir, yeah.
Okay, good stuff. We know where the Pinsir went. Okay.
I think Garbodor was... I believe you had Aggron there, and no Poison type previously.
It was a free agent pickup, and he had Aggron there instead of Garbodor.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't really... We forget about the free agents sometimes, and we think that you draft these things and we're proud of you, but free agent pickups we're just as proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to say is I feel like there's a lack of breaking power across the team. Like, we all know Incineroar is most likely not running max attack. And so then that comes down to, like, Como, which we've seen him do mainly Dragon Dance sets in an off-season a bit ago, and Lycanroc for immediate physical power, and then immediate special attacking is Mega Pidgeot, which has 2 moves, and Primarina. So hopefully that's like specs max special attack Primarina pretty often, because it seems like it's mainly set up.
Okay, good stuff. I'm kind of in the background because I stood up for a second. Brandon, are you ready to go?
Let's get it.
All right, go ahead. We're finally in top 5.
Okay, and I need to address the big ass elephant in the room real quick.
I was gonna get to that after, but we can address it now if you want.
No, let's wait. Let's wait.
Let's wait.
It sounds good, like a good idea. I really like this team. I really do. It was one of the teams I saw. It was one of my. We play little games of studs and duds. Basically, what it is we pick out 3 teams that we think are going to be towards the top. Just kind of give us a good baseline of where we're going to attack the list, and then we also have 3 duds. This is one of my studs. This team is pretty good. So I'll actually get to why it's good now. I like the offensive mix quite a bit to start off. I feel like pretty much everything's well supported. I have a newfound very high opinion of Dragapult. I think I've been a little hard on it in the past because I only saw it as like only a special attacker and it really didn't have any usage for its physical attack. I was pretty wrong on that aspect. You can run a lot of creative sets that allow investment in both of the offenses, including speed that you need to outspeed the whole team, and put in some work. And the unpredictability of it is extremely, extremely polarizing. So I've been a little hard on Dragapult in the past. Still don't think it's a top 5 modern draft, but I top 10 easily, probably like even top 6 or 7. Very good. Well, I've always had a high opinion of Mega Gallade. Mega Gallade's the best Mega in the game. So pairing it with such a good Dragon type and really Ghost type is what I really like about it too to start out. Mega Gallade really does appreciate that because it doesn't really care about offensively about dark types or anything like that. So it's just a good little stab mix to basically hit everything super effectively in the entire metagame. Inteleon is actually that great base 120 speed tier. We always talk about having, if you're going to go high, like 142, 140, something like that, we always like you to go at least 120, 130. Give those 130s a reason to chill out. And that's why Inteleon's there. And then, I mean, just even getting value out of some of your lower tiers, Typhlosion, Venomoth. Venomoth isn't necessarily low tier. Wigglytuff isn't your only fairy, which I really like, because Wigglytuff is useless, but just the really good offensive synergy there. And then you look defensively, you'd think it would slow down a bit, but Celesteela has Intimidate to be supported with. Celesteela has good electric resists. Celesteela has something like Cradily, which, again, another low-tier mon that works really well with something like Celesteela. Absorbing burns for it and resisting electric moves and all the good 9 yards. It's just, I just think it's a really well-built round team. It has the capabilities of sweeping like Dragapult and Venomoth. The hazard removal is not great, but, I mean, there's not too much weak to rocks on this team that is going to run boots anyway. And the hazard setting is so-so as well, which I go a little bit less hard on because of boots basically being a thing, but it's also going to get knocked. It's why it wasn't like a top 3 team, is because it lacked on some of these utility points. But the base of the team in general is quite fire. It just lacks a little bit on utility, lacks on that hazards and removal, sort of lacks with... I would also say somewhat of Volturn. I mean, I really like Dragapult. I really like Inteleon. Rotom Frost isn't much of a bring, you know what I mean? Venomoth isn't really running U-turn a whole bunch, so it's... I don't think got Teleport in this weird sort of gen situation. And then Wigglytuff does get Baton Pass, but it's useless. So there are definitely aspects of this team, like Grimmsnarl setting screens to make Celesteela switch in easier, Dragapult setup easier, Gallade setup easier. That's definitely all there, which is why I liked it so much, but yeah, I've already went over my gripe. That's it, though. That's what I think. Anytime you draft Celesteela, it's like a steel type without rocks. Hazards generally struggle.
I guess I can pass this over to Lily, because Lily actually had this as a top 3 team. What kind of made you do that, Lily?
The offensive threats are really big. Like, Celesteela is a mixed bag of what is it going to be in this matchup. Is it going to be defensive? Is it going to be sort of a Tautomized set? Dragapult, as much as we hate, we can't ignore that it is a offensive threat. Spec sets do hurt. Gallade is a mon that can break many cores just because of its sheer amount of coverage. Inteleon Inteleon's actually kind of an oof on this team. I feel like that's one of the weaker elements because no defensive water type kind of sucks. Honestly, I know you drafted Wigglytuff specifically because you wanted to mess around with it, but I feel like Wigglytuff could have been swapped for some sort of low tier bulky, like a Luminion would technically add on to, would keep the pivot and give you another defogger, or whatever that's worth.
You don't know the types anyway. Like, even with some of the doubled up types like Croak Grimmsnarl, he still has all the types.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's why he doubled up. Drab knows how hard I simp for Slow King Galar.
I love
That mon-
Galar Slowking as well. It's so good.
That mon will do mad work for you, or it should. We'll see what happens. Venomoth is a sleeper, low tier sweeper. Sleep powder into Quiver Dance can fuck up a lot of teams, especially with Tinted Lens. Typhlosion is a sleeper, low tier breaker. Slap a specs on that mon and then start and see how your reacts.
Yeah, that water turn switching sometimes.
I think the weakest thing is the weeks you manage to bring it. Absolutely want to run rocks with ease. Wigglytuff struggles to find the room, leaving Crocodile your only high tier.
He's gone.
That's true. This is true.
Or did he stop? I don't know what happened.
I think you just stopped, yeah.
Okay.
I just stopped.
Okay, I thought you disappeared into the void.
I do that too.
About the high tier rocker, that's it.
Okay. Dravos, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I feel like Galar Slowking is kind of the dedicated fighting resist on this team. Because the only other things are Venomoth, Mega Glade, and Dragapult. So you don't have really much to take a really strong fighting attack.
I mean, Celestial is basically a fighting resist. Monster everything.
Yeah, but like anything that's like a breaker, like expanded, like something. Yeah, I mean, and Celestial only has Leech Seed in the lefties. It'll probably have. You don't super want to take like a 40-50% hit potentially.
Like,
I don't know what's doing that to Celestial.
But...
Yeah.
So you're telling me it's an Urshifu week?
Yeah, is it? Is it?
That
Really?
it is, Mono.
It looks like an Urshifu week.
So speaking of Urshifu.
Yeah.
Well, before that, before I pass the mic off to Lily again,
Hi.
I'm going to bring up an obvious thing. If any of you are paying attention, you may notice that throughout the teams we have done so far, you have not seen any of the 4 power rankers yet, and you probably know where this is going. Obviously, you can say that it could just be power ranker bias that we have all of our teams ranked this high, but I think I can speak for all of us for saying we like to try and be as objective as possible. So even though it did turn out this way, this wasn't the intent from the start. It just so happened that the teams I feel overall this season were kind of weaker than we're normal to see. And even though we drafted probably some of our weaker teams, they were still slightly better than the teams we've seen so far.
We don't do this all the time either. Like, this is like one of the first times that I've seen this all like this. So, and he's got a good point. I mean, like, I was pretty disappointed, and some of our better drafters too, just kind of taking off seasons, which for whatever reason. I mean, I know this was my 3rd draft in 3 weeks in a row of drafting, so I definitely didn't put my full effort into this. I understand that happens. I mean, some of you have your reasons. I think I overheard like my boy Bass was starting at his new job during this, so definitely proud of him for that. Shout out to him, by the way. That's amazing.
And then we got people like Frog who are brand new to the format.
Yeah. Then we have people like Shad who are way better than all of us at drafting. because Kyurem's a tier 1. But yeah. Like I said, speaking of Urshifu,
Yeah. So, like I said, if you have any real problems, then you can obviously bring them up to us. We can try and help to sort of discuss what we're thinking. Or if you want, you can go out and make your own power ranking. Do whatever you need to.
I say it every time, but I'll go ahead and just throw that little Easter egg in here now. There is a Discord. There is a comment, I guess, but probably use the Discord. Feel free to tell us all your opinions. We're more than happy to tell you that you are wrong.
Good stuff. All right. Lily, are you ready to take us into top 4?
Nope, but I'll do it.
All right. Oh, hold on. Wait.
Wow.
Okay,
Best
there
power
we
ranker.
go. Please be
NA.
gentle.
All right. So I was probably least.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it has a few problems. Like in terms of offense, it is a little lacking. It has good defensive mons, but when it comes to actually breaking opponents, it's essentially at it Urshifu and Azelf. Because I see a lot of these other roles. Like Aggron wants to use its defensive stats to be a good wall. Donphan, same thing. Roserade actually will get use out of its specialty, but I see it as a good spike setter on this team to help wear things down for Urshifu. I used to actually hate on Finny as of this gen, but thinking about it, it actually helps it a lot more. Toxic more easily, so it can really just better fill that role of being a wall for the team. I think removal isn't the best. It's Donphan and Finny, which are 2 mons that don't get recovery. They basically rely on their leftovers. Mr. Mime and Noivern are also there, but Mr. Mime is maybe one or two time bring, in my opinion. It likes being that that fast offensive mon for. Hazard wise, you have the most reliable, which I think helps Donphan out a lot. That is not a mon. That mon likes to run, and removing the stress of that already 4 move slots just de-stresses that mon so much. Licky is a great low tier wall. Miss Magius is a great low tier. I love Raichu. I never hate on that mon.
I actually got it this season.
Yeah.
That's your Floatzel.
That is my Floatzel right there.
While it is a mon I've never consider drafting if I was in need of a low tier electric. Scorch is a amazing bug, and I realized how good of a bug it is too. It is literally budget Pokemon. Finny is a great tier 1 mon alongside Urshifu. It can come in, absorb those fairy moves, 8 as well as Aggron. I think if I were to change, because as good as Licky is, I probably would have liked a high, just because Licky can take a beat. He does get worn down a little faster than some other higher tier wishers would. Brandon, you want to take it away?
Ooh, I'd love to. He actually asked me personally.
He did.
Because when I see it in this team, this is just another day at the office for Monotone, I'll tell you. Because this team is a classic, just absolutely classic, bulk offense team that this man runs all the time. And it's super interesting. He seems to land Finny more often than not, I've noticed. But it's just super interesting how it's constructed because with bulk offense, what I would definitely recommend is you do still have good speed tiers. It's never an excuse to have bad speed tiers. And you have just enough threats. Azelf Noivern at the top that will force prep. I think Noivern is definitely rising in usage for a reason. It's showing itself as more of a threat than we had initially thought. With the buff to boots, with it having a lot of versatility to now actually run things like defog and not be terrible. With it, Frisk is so good. I can't get over how good that ability is and how well it served me back in Mystic for our first season. And then Azelf, man, you need to be worried about Azelf. 125 in both offenses with the speed stat of base 115. You kidding me? That thing's coverage. You need to worry about it. You need to be prepping for it. Need to be. And with all the setup it gets too, I mean, you need to be prepping for it. And then you got descending good like Raichu, Mismagius, Mime Galar. None of those mods are staples, but you should be expecting one of those three most weeks. So the speed tiers aren't terrible in that regard. And then, I mean, we're just setting things up for Big Urshifu. I mean, that was the entire point of this draft. The entire breakdown of this draft was set things up for Big Urshifu.
Yes, definitely. The whole point of the draft was to support Urshifu.
Now, hold up. I was just about to... You bastard. I was about to say, I know it was originally Hoopa, but the point is you wanted a Dark type to succeed on this team, right? You wanted a Dark type to succeed on this team. And a Dark type is succeeding on this team with Urshifu, to be absolutely fair. So... jump the gun, you bastard. But it's just a lot of just things that takes hits, dishes damage back, or does something to set up or provide utility for the team. I mean, that's the entire theme, basically down the board outside of some of the faster Pokemon. I mean, Roserade takes big special attacks, sets up spikes, goes put things to sleep, goes for Leech Seed. Finny's the definition of that. Clicking Defog, clicking Nature's Madness, Moonblast, Scald. Because you defog away your terrain, and then you can get Scald Burns. Mm-hmm. Centiskorch is another great example of a mon that I can see Monotone using quite well. So, and then, like Lil already said with the Aggron, Donphan wants to run Rapid Spin more. Donphan gets more coverage, Knockoff, Ice Shard, things like that. Licky Licky, just pass and wishes throughout the entire team. A lot of this team doesn't actually get recovery. Licky Licky doesn't care about that. Aggron basically gets full restores off Licky Licky's wishes. It's a really good combination, and you may think weak to fighting. Zapdos Galar has to be banded for a roll to 2-shot. That's how bulky Mega Aggron is. So it's a team I like. It's a team that bulk offense is actually how I started as a draft player, so I resonate really well with it. It's the first I ever drafted was bulk offense, and I always like to see what Monotone comes up with. So tooting his own horn here.
Dravos, would you like to add anything?
I really, really love your team. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Tapu Fini. That Pokemon is so good. If you don't have a way to reliably 2-hit KO it, probably on both physical and special, you could find yourself swept by it very easily. It sets up very easily. It gets stored power, it gets Calm Mind, it gets Iron Defense. It can really run away with the game. And then you have something like Urshifu on top of that. It's a lot to deal with. And you have a lot of good sleeper threats like Centiskorch, Mismagius. Those are great lower tier picks. Centiskorch hits crazy hard. Fire Lash drops defense. I'm pretty sure that's 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. Centiskorch also gets Leech Life so it can support itself a little bit. Mismagius gets good coverage and it can run AV sets pretty easy. It can run Scarf. Just a lot of really good aspects on this team coming together. I'm a big fan of it.
I feel like you're just looking at the VOD of our match.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you guys already played. You probably wouldn't have been saying all this if you didn't.
I guess I can go in a bit to talk about why I drafted what I drafted. So
Sure.
Mainly, I was trying to build a team around what was supposed to be Hoopa Unbound Mega Aggron. It turned out to be Urshifu Mega Aggron, which honestly isn't too awful. I like the combo still.
I like it a little more.
Yeah. They're supported great by Feeny, who takes those special hits and has the Misty Terrain to stop statuses like Burns from getting on them. We have Pokemon like Centiskorch, who can tank fire moves and also likes to come in on Psychic types sometimes. We have faster Pokemon like Azelf and Noivern to help cover their bit of a weaker speed tiers. We have Licky Licky, who can pass around wishes. And people are sleeping on Mr. Mime, but I like Mr. Mime. He's a cool dude. And also, Era, I saw you joking in the comments of my videos. I will bring Dig Raichu. Believe it. It's happening.
That base 90 attack stat, man.
Base 90 attack stat. Same as special attack.
If you run Power Herb, it activates immediately.
Exactly.
What's an electric type? What's an opposing electric type?
What is an opposing electric type to a strong Dig that you can definitely not switch into a flying type easily?
Dude, give me that +1 boost by hitting me with electric type attack for that flying type to come in. Mix Raichu. What do you know about it?
But yeah, overall, I tried to draft a team around Mega Aggron Urshifu or Mega Aggron Hoopa. I think I did fairly well. I'd like to think this is one of my stronger teams, but who knows? I could just be overthinking it. I definitely still think Season 3 was a peak for me, but oh well.
You always get 5th, so...
We're not 5th.
You went up 1 spot.
Let's
Proud
go.
of you.
Finally.
Alright, and now it is Dravos' turn.
Hey, it's me.
All right. It's
Tear him
Brian.
apart.
Oh, it will be so easy. No, it's another pretty good team. You were talking about how you're a bit burnt out, so it was a little bit of a weaker team for you, but it's still a good team. You still put together solid teams. I think your biggest miss this time is your speed tiers are a little wonky there. Coco down to Hydreigon most weeks. I mean, I don't know if you plan to or something, but I doubt Scyther comes that often. So that is a big of a drop. But you do have easily scarfed Pokemon. Darmanitan, Mamoswine, they easily can run a scarf. Hydreigon can run a scarf. Maybe you're going to get a little bit wild and run some sort of Dragon Dance Hydreigon. I really don't know. But you're only missing Rock type. You covered all your other types. Like you said, Mike and Rocks were drafted, so you weren't able to get your Rock type. Not much can be done. Yeah. I don't know. The big thing is just this is the most interesting hyper offense team I've ever seen since you said you were drafting only hyper offense. I mean, Registeel, just who would have thought hyper offense? Cofagrigus, hyper offense. Audino, hyper offense.
Highest status defense.
No, it's just got a lot of good synergy. Nothing too real crazy, like weakness-wise or anything. At least not that I noticed. It's just well put together. There's not... It's hard to like tear it apart because there's just not much to tear apart. I mean, you have some ridiculous defensive cores like Venusaur, Registeel, Cofagrigus, and Audino. Like Audino is great value out of tier 5. I mean, it's just a lot of good things going for it. Lots of good pivoting among the faster Pokemon like Coco, Hydreigon, Darmanitan. I think one of the weaker areas would probably be your hazard removal. Blastoise doesn't want to run Spin every week. Coco doesn't want to run Defog every week. Scyther's not going to come every week, and I don't think it's coming just to Defog. Hydreigon doesn't super want to run Defog, so it's kind of putting a lot of it onto him on top there. Other than that, Mamo, Mesprit, and Registeel are your rockers. Mesprit and Registeel are great. Mamo can be, but I feel like its moveset fills up pretty quick anyways. And then you're down to T-Spikes on Cofagrigus. In my experience, it's kind of tough to fit T-Spikes onto Cofagrigus. It's usually running like Pain Split, Body Press now. I forget what else it runs. Maybe it is easy to run it on there, but I feel like the hazard control is the main thing holding it back on this team from being like top 1 or 2. That's about all I have to say.
Okay.
I thought you said that's not all I have to say. I'm like, okay, then keep talking.
No.
No,
It's not all I have to say, but I'm gonna sit here silent.
just figure it out.
I can go ahead and add a bit. Tapu Koko, I know you mainly just drafted that for the speed tier, but also looking at the electric terrain, the team doesn't really do much with it. If anything, it can kind of hinder you because it just makes it easy set up for electric types to come in on things like Blastoise and Scyther and get strong electric moves off. But other than that, it's not too much of a big deal. I think you do have a strange problem with that you only have 2 Pokemon above 100 base speed, and it's 130 and 105, which is something that may be troublesome down the line because there's a lot of people who have Pokemon who are higher than 105 who can easily come in when Coco's not around and do a lot of punishment. But I still think the team is strong. I personally am a huge fan of Mega Venusaur, and I know how just defensive or even offensive it can be depending on how you use it. So it's going to be very fun how to see you use that in a hyper offensive stance. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Hitmontop is a Pokemon I personally take problems with, but you may be able to use it better than I have in the past. And we'll see. Lily, do you have anything?
Yes. Tell me, IL Kid, if that is your... Was drafting basically 4 base 80 Mons all part of your plan?
Venusaur doesn't run speed, man.
No, it doesn't. I just found it
But
funny
it
that
can.
we're all I just kind of found it funny how basically 4 base 80s. Now, granted, that is a pretty common tier.
That's
Yeah,
nice and
for
creepy.
sure.
Alright, so
You want to get in your shots about me taking Kofag now, or you want the?
No, I'm over it. I will say, I feel like something that could really benefit you is drafting a low-tier electric type that can just spam Rising Voltage.
there is a Raichu Alolan in play.
True.
Gotta jump on that.
Base 110.
So,
It's
so
a
I guess
base 110.
it's my turn to go over the why and everything.
Yes, it's your turn.
So, I was completely zoinked out of drafting because, like I said, 3 weeks, man, it's just straight drafting. You get a little annoyed at looking at Pokemon. I'll go ahead and just touch on a few different things. For one, this is probably the slowest team I've ever drafted, like for sure, Z's. But this is kind of where we talk about how, on paper, that definitely looks bad. And I would rate this low. I did rate this lower than I normally would on a team that I thought I did better on. But I will say, like, a perfect example of what's not going to show up on paper, I have actually a lot of plans about Scyther. I think that it's extremely underrated. I think it's very good, and I'm going to try to get it moved up a tier. And I feel like that I put it in a pretty good position to actually run defog. There's a couple different variations and sets that I can think of that I can really make use of defog. I won't really show them. I'll tell you them because I kind of want to use them, to be honest. And then at the point about electric terrain, I don't really care to waste a roster slot on something like an Alolan Raichu for a gimmick. Electric terrain is a boost for Coco and Coco only. And there's going to be a good couple of turns where I'm taking advantage of that, as long as I'm smart about where I place my water types and my, my electric weaknesses outside of those 3 to 4 turns of terrain being up, and utilizing some of my more defensive mods like Registeel or Mamoswine to take more offensive electrics on. I can, and of course Mega Venusaur. I can generally manage pretty okay. But other than that, I mean, my special offense is pretty lacking. And they kept making fun of me for the hyper offense thing because my first 5 rounds, I'm like, all right, I'm getting Coco on side. I think it's so good. I think it's a top 3 mod in draft. Even despite the nerfs, it's still great. Even despite Z moves, I still think this mod has a ton of potential, and I can't wait to show it off this season. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get Coco, and then, oh, Mamoswine's there. I never really get to use that. Let's grab that. And it's like, oh, Hydreigon's still here in round 3. Oh, Darmanitan's still here in round 5. My first 5 picks were Coco, Mamoswine, Hydreigon, Registeel, and Darmanitan. So I'm like, yeah, I got a bunch of offense, and I was talking about it early, and then I'm like, well, I probably need to drive defense. Let's get a fighting resist, Quagsires. Okay, well, now I need something to support Quagsires. Let's get Okanail. Wait, Mega Venusaur's still there. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I kind of went. So hazard removal is definitely rough. It's definitely not my best speed tiers or hazard control, but, you know, overall, I think I drafted a fun, balanced team that I think I'll be able to use pretty well.
Nice. All right. Good stuff. So with that, I get to take over, and we get to talk about the number 2 team of the league this season.
I am a number 2.
True. All right. So, as we can see, Lily is used to drafting a lot of offense, especially in the megas. Usually, Lily's mega is very offensively powerful, and that has not changed much with Mega Lopunny. Obviously, 135 speed is great, and 136 attack. It can punch holes into a lot of things, especially with Scrappy, so it doesn't have to worry about ghost types at all. It can just punch right through those. You do support Mega Lopunny awesomely well with Pokemon like Zapdos and Necrozma, who can come in and tank hits that Mega Lopunny cannot take. Tapu Bulu is interesting. It's a Pokemon that, while I do like, I recognize that as a main and only fairy, it's not really that strong because it has no good fairy coverage. But the terrain is interesting, and it doesn't hinder your ground type Palossand because Palossand likes to be special, which doesn't affect any of its moves. Plus, it can support Pokemon like Nihilego, and Empoleon, who get that less damage from earthquakes, which are nice. We already talked about Pinsir being a great tier 5 pick. It's incredibly fast. It gets access to rocks, which can be useful. What can I talk about on the negative side? I'm not trying to look to be negative, but I know I have to say about something. I think one of my main... I'm not looking at the right team. Hold on. This is a different team. Here you are.
I like always see your mouse movement.
I think one of my main problems with this team is the removal, because you do have some decent removal, but Talonflame doesn't usually want to run Defog. Mr. Rhyme is a low tier Pokemon you might not bring that often, so it mainly falls onto Zapdos and Empoleon. And while Zapdos can run it, and it can run it really effectively, if you have to run Zapdos as your only hazard removal every week, then it can get easily predictable and people can catch on and counter that. And then with Empoleon, it can also run it effectively, but it unfortunately does not have its own sort of coverage, so it will slowly get chipped away at, which fortunately you can't really support with Wish. You do have 2 Healing Wish users, but one of them is Mega Lopunny, and I don't think you want to sacrifice your Mega Lopunny so you can heal up an Empoleon, but you could surprise me. And then Mr. Rhyme, which could be an interesting play. But yeah, you have a lot of Stealth Rocks with 1 Toxic Spikes and Nihilego. I think overall the team is very powerful. There's just a few things in there that kind of throw me off from putting it just at the top.
I'll definitely say, and I'll go ahead and bring this up now. I probably spent the longest time deciding what my 4, 3, and 2 were going to be, and it is this order. I had Cold War 4, myself 3, and this one 2. But I spent a long time trying to decide because I felt like we all had our strengths and weaknesses. I won't go into those too terribly much, but I'll talk about why I ended up going with this as number 2, despite the number 1 team, which I think is pretty undisputed, kind of in a tier of its own. I really, really did like the next team we're going to talk about. But this team, I think, is so systematic. It's really beautiful how systematic it is on its game plan and idea to win the game by utilizing one of the 3 threats of Necrozma, Zygarde 10, or Talonflame to sweep and win games. Mainly, of course, being centered around Necrozma. I mean, it's so systematic how it does this. Lopunny, Zapdos, and I almost said Empoleon, actually, just there. Lopunny, Zapdos, and Talonflame, albeit not necessarily a lot of Volturn. That is where I say really the team struggled the most. You have but you do have one of the best defoggers in the game. Actually, you have the best defogger in the game, in my opinion. Zapdos is the best defogger in the game, especially with the introduction of boots. You have a lot of great offensive prowess and threats. I think Nihilego is so underrated as a breaker in this metagame, especially with the new Meteor Beam set that's very new. Bulu's still spamming banded base 130 grass moves at a tier 3 pricing is pretty good. Crawdon is such a breaker in its own right and different enough from Empoleon to draft despite sharing a couple weaknesses, both of which being pretty covered, by the way, with the likes of Double Ground, which is acceptable in this team, as well as just Nihilego being a general, especially defensive tank, since electric moves are so commonly special. And Zapdos being probably the best fighting resist in the game, too. Just for some reason, bouncing off coverage move Ice Punches, for some reason, honestly. But it's Lopunny hitting things, it's either Talonflame or Zygarde hitting things, or Necrozma hitting things, and one of those Pokemon is going to sweep. Necrozma's going to double its stats, set up bulkily in front of your face. Talonflame's going to click Swords Dance with boots, and that 81 attack stat is way more respectable. And Zygarde's just going to Dragon Dance. And Lily's going to find different ways to put his opponents in those situations. Even despite not maybe having like spikes or anything like that, he's still going to utilize the initiative that he does have. He's still going to utilize the rocks that he does have. And I think anyone could, to be honest. It's very systematic. Like I said, it's very Lily team, very systematic. And I don't know if that's a point that people get when they look at this team that I've drilled so home about, that Necrozma, Zygarde 10, and Talonflame just feel so good as threats in the late game. And then like Zapdos feels good up front, Lopunny feels good up front. He drafted those systematic roles down the board, which is what makes or breaks these teams when you draft with purpose, when you draft for a reason. And I know he spent a lot of time on this team, and I like it quite a bit.
I guess that leaves just me to add something. The only thing I really have to add is that there's not much to deal with a strong ice type, I feel like. Rhyme, Empoleon, and Crawdon are the only natural resists. And out of those, it's really just Empoleon. But like that's really just picking apart the smallest thing. The only other huge complaint that hasn't been touched on that I have is probably the lack of like heal bell aromatherapy. It's really kind of non-existent. And then you're not going to want Necrozma or Zapdos to pick up a toxic, and that's a great way of dealing with like Zapdos is toxic because it can just roost on nearly anything you throw at it all day. But that's really just niche tearing it apart, like the smallest little things. Overall, it's just a very solid team. Like Brandon was saying, it's just has these very clearly defined roles, and it's going to put itself in a position to win so easily and so often. And that's why we've seen Lily's team succeed so consistently in PDL, is because they're meticulously crafted to put itself in positions to win. It's not by accident that Lily keeps winning.
Also say that like the main difference when we talk about systematic approaches and sharing a role, we kind of said something similar about Aerothorn and even knocked on it a little bit. It's not just one role these mods are filling, they're filling multiple roles. Necrozma was not just a sweeper on this team. It's also very bulky. It also breaks things. Like Talonflame is not just going to win. It's also going to run Band. It's also, well, probably Boots, but you get my point. It's also going to run like U-turn and 4 switches or even burn with bulk up sets. You know, I mean, Zygarde 10's pretty one-dimensional, but those mons have purpose. I mean, Zapdos isn't just defensive; it's also a good specs user. You know, Bulu can also run defensive sets, and Empoleon can run defiant sets. I mean, there's usage here. It's not just that one thing, you know. So that's the main difference. I thought I would go ahead and add, just so we didn't sound hypocritical or anything.
Yeah.
All right, Lily, do you want to talk about your own team?
Basically, I went into this being like, what are some stuff I want to try out? And that's essentially what I did. Lopunny too, and obviously that got down to me. So I was very excited to see I was the #1 spot in draft order, so I can guarantee the VP I want.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
from there, I kind of just thought Lopunny the most, and that's when I was like, oh, I probably want a bulky flying type. A good bulky flying type to help defend against opposing fighting types. So I was looking through those, and I was like, that actually almost drafted it last season. It probably wasn't the best fit for the team. Necrozma was so good to me in off season. I feel like it's I got it so late. I feel like people just don't just underestimate that mon. Prism Armor is an amazing. You ever just draft a psychic type with basically no weakness?
Sounds nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Empoleon and Zapdos, I feel like each other, basically covering each other's main weakness. I actually thought this was a lot more ground because I would be heavily relying on. But seeing that it's only Nihilego and Empoleon makes me a little happier with it.
You drafted terrain, so I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of all I have to say.
All right.
Excellent. I mean, good team, man.
All right. Are we ready for the team that was almost unanimously top if the person who actually owned the team didn't downplay themselves so much?
Say, like he's the one that didn't.
All right. Take us away, Brandon.
All right. First and absolutely foremost, I got beef with the league, okay? I do. I got beef with y'all. Why did Dravos get a round 4 Garchomp? Why did it happen? What are we doing? That was the steal of the draft, hands down. You just pretend like he drafted Snorlax in the 4th round and Garchomp in the 2nd? Are you kidding me? And it apparently worked out because people were going to take Snorlax before they were going to take Garchomp. Garchomp is top 5, man. It's so good, and we're just sleeping on it. He got to get Mega Scizor and Garchomp, which I will now go ahead and talk about. I mean, that core right there is beyond ridiculous. I mean, this is such a... I mean, if anyone deserves the gold star here for how much effort they put into making their team good, I mean, this man was in so many DMs asking people, would this be good? Would that be good? What should I do here? He immediately dropped Frostlass because he thought it was trash, because it is. And thought of how he can replace it, and he's constantly like trying to evaluate his, like during the draft, of course, constantly trying to evaluate if this was the right pick, if this was the right move. And when you put that much work into it, you are rewarded. I mean, the theme of this team where Garchomp, like offensive threats like Garchomp, Thundurus, and Gengar just kind of win, is so well supported with the likes of Uxie. Snorlax, like he has a Mega Scizor especially, like he has the mons to just sustain hits and cover so many different typings, at least on a typing perspective, and so many different ways to have utility in the ways of like removing hazards and setting them reliably. Setting them a little worse, I would say, but I still think Uxie, Diancie, Garchomp, offensive rocks Garchomp, excuse me, is pretty good. I definitely wouldn't say top tier. When it comes to like hazard setting in general, I'm a little less crucial about it because of the introduction of boots. Like it's just it obviously took a big hit where teams, it's just weird, like they don't really run defog if their rocks weakness is already covered. So I mean, and he's got good defog too. It's just it's a really good team. The initiative is definitely there as well. It definitely gives Garchomp and Scizor a lot of room. Scizor actually provides that initiative as well, while also being a sword stance threat on this team, or being a physically or specially defensive wall. It quite literally does everything. He got it out of his 1st round pick, and then he still got Garchomp later, which is an amazing fire resist for Scizor, vice versa with Ice for Garchomp and Scizor. But yeah, just in general, it's like, kind of like you said about my team, I don't have a lot of bad things to say because it's really not that bad. I can see it maybe getting overwhelmed by opposing setup and offense, like not having the defensive capabilities to sustain Pokemon clicking Sword Stance Nasty Plot moves. But you still have arguments for matchup dependency, like Snorlax can probably wall a lot of Nasty Plot setters. Scizor, unless you have coverage fire move, is tanking like boosted Earthquakes, for instance. It's just really, really good, I think, and I just don't have a lot of negative to say about it. It's the best team. He put a lot of work into it, and he definitely deserves it.
Yeah, this is a well put together team. I can say for sure, as the person who unfortunately had to go up against him first, that he definitely has everything in order. I feel like people overlook the power of Volcanion until you have to figure out who takes a hit from a Scald with the power of a Hydro Pump. So that's fun. But yeah, this team has a lot of support. It's got Pokemon who support it defensively. It's got Pokemon who give lots of offense. It has some of my favorite Pokemon I like to use a lot, like Cryogonal with Thundurus, so I put it up there maybe a little bit, but I still think overall this is easily the best team because it's got all the things that a great team's going to want. It's going to want offense, it's going to want defense, good speed tiers. I think, like Kid said, hazards are a bit on the meh side, but it's something that you can definitely live with. Lily, you were saying something?
Yes, I said meh.
Ah, perfect. Thank you.
I honestly think the buzzed. I'm not gonna lie. That's what I thought happened there.
I thought so as well. But yeah, the team overall is really strong. Definitely the best one in this league, and probably one of the best teams you've drafted in the entire league, I'd say. This is definitely a very strong team. Lily, do you want anything?
Part of me hates that you have a base 102, base 101, but it also works because Garchomp doesn't have that speed stat.
Certainly doesn't.
On
has one meh stat.
Yeah. And that's Bidef.
Alright.
Garchomp's coming.
Alright, Dravos.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
let's hear it. Why is this team not as good as we think it is?
You know, the way I drafted it, I didn't want Mega Scizor to be running like defensive sets that often, so I don't think of it as like defensive. So I look at the team and I see very little recovery. Like Crobat, Sceptile, Cryogonal, and that's it for reliable recovery in my mind.
I
Like, yes, Mega Scizor 10, but
you know teams usually average like 3-4 mons for recovery purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but Crobat
on par. And with Scizor, that's a good 3.
But Crobat, Sceptile, and Cryogonal are the only ones that I'm really looking at, and Sceptile's not that defensive. Crobat like relies on resist, like
watch
typing
out for that Spadef
to be
Sceptile.
defensive. Yeah, and Cryogonal is only special defense. It has no like physical bulk. So that's my main issue with it. That, and I don't have much of any hazard setting outside of Garchomp, who most often I feel like I'm going to be wanting to run fully offensive sets. Uxie, whose moveset might fill up pretty fast, and Diancie, who I don't expect to come every single week. That, and I don't have much for Heal Bell and Aromatherapy to support Mega Scizor, because we all know that Mon gets burned easy, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Alright, well, solid opinions from all the teams, and that is going to end it. Right around the 2-hour mark. We're making great time.
Honestly, yeah, good job, guys. Hey, you know, like we just said, it's opinion. I already said the company line earlier, but it's opinions, man. We're just having fun. We're really excited for another season. I'm happy to be back. Happy to use Darmanitan. That's gonna be fun. And yeah, I am looking forward to playing all you guys. I know this is one of the leagues where you play everybody, right? So actually, no, it's not. It's not actually.
No,
it's not.
I do miss some matchups. I actually prefer it that way, to be honest. If we did a 13-week season, you guys do not know how long that is. But yeah, thanks for watching.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening to us. We hope that you listen to what we have to say and you internalize it and use it to your game however you can, or just you had fun enjoying it. So leave a like for Monotone. He's a great guy, and he's been uploading on his matches, and I know I've had a lot of fun watching him. So
Thank you.
can't wait to see that bulky offense team, man. I'm pretty excited to see how you build each week.
Thank you.
And honestly, little spoiler alert, I mean, I'm not going to make any promises because I suck at this, but I might upload on this league too. I mean, I'm trying to get this league or another one.
Good work, Lily. We did it in synchronization.
I might upload on this league too. It's either going to be this one or another one.
But yeah, like we said, if you have problems with the video, then please come talk to us. We don't want to have any sort of bad feelings with anyone. So if you feel that we made some wrong decisions, or if you feel that we treated you too harshly, feel free to approach us. We're all very approachable. Or if you just want to try and fix your team, make it feel like a bit of a better team, just ask us and we can do something to try and help you fix it.
I wish I was more charismatic, guys, but I'm still pretty approachable.
Yeah, I promise you,
say,
we are all approachable. No one bites except for Lily occasionally.
I do.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll run bite.
We ranked these teams based on criteria that we came up with, that we all kind of go over as we draft. So of course our teams are going to end up better. We know our team's more in and out than all of your teams. So it's not necessarily that we're consciously biased, it'd be more subconsciously biased, if anything. But also we just are the best of the best, clearly.
Clearly.
The truth is, we don't want to hurt each other's feelings.
The truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
I mean, there are leagues where I think that we all had something a bit higher, and Lily had it as like the third worst team, or vice versa. I think he had a team like top 4 or something, and we were all like, this team sucks or whatever. I mean, it definitely happens. It's just happened to be one of those seasons where, I mean, I think we all could have done a little better drafting wise, except honestly the top 2, personally.
Yeah, that's gonna end it for this video. Like I said, it's a 2-hour video, so pretty much on par with what we usually do. So if you stick around to watch the whole thing, thank you so much. If you only came by to see where you're ranked, that's fine. But
I'm not gonna leave timestamps. That takes too much time.
I mean, I could. If I feel encouraged to, I can. But I don't always have that energy.
I already promised we wouldn't.
Okay, then I won't. Alright. Everyone say your final goodbyes.
Please like, comment, and subscribe to Mr. Monotone on theyoutube.com.
For all 12 of you watching.
All 12 of you. Alright. Jarvis, do you have any
Especially you, Airthorn. I know you are.
He lurking. That boy lurking.
Goodbye, fellow big fans.
Later, fellow sex havers.
Take care, everyone.